Clearly, I am not a famous person, a best-selling author, or an influencer of any sort. Although, I hope to be that and much more someday. Between these and my imposter syndrome, I have decided to embark on this journey anyway. Hi, Ebi Francis is my name. And guess what? I am your host. Essentially, I'm going to implore you through this podcast to reconsider your view of the use of a fork and pay attention to its nuances. Mentally, of course. Are you still there? Then this podcast is for you. What is your unique story? Care to lend a voice? Really? Do you care to lend your voice? Then come on in. Let's share, learn, inspire, edify, challenge our creativity, as well as motivate and entertain for the win. What do you say? I say, welcome to Fork, Fear, Failure, and Hustle. Are you a home health care company in need of a reputable and professionally committed physical, occupational, and speech therapist provider company in Houston, Texas? Or are you or someone you know a licensed physical, occupational, or speech therapist, assistants and bilinguals alike, seeking to serve in home health and private care? Where working self-scheduled flexible hours is the norm in providing care to pediatric and adult patients in Houston and nearby cities in Texas. Spade Rehab is an independent physical, occupational, and speech therapy services company located in Houston, Texas. You need to contact today. Spade Rehab has been providing its services to private pay individuals, LOP clients, and contracted home health care companies for well over a decade. With curated, personalized professional services just for you that will have you bouncing back to being your normal active self again, based on a short or long-term goal recovery plan of care in physical, occupational, and speech therapies, outlined by its qualified therapists after each evaluation and scheduled follow-up treatment sessions catered to your specific needs in the comfort of your home. Interested? Simply send your inquiries and resumes to spademedrehab@gmail.com. spademedrehab@gmail.com. A trusted and experienced company serving the community for well over a decade. Small we are, but we get the job done. Email them today at spademedrehab@gmail.com. Spade Rehab Services, different and resilient in what we do. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Fork, Fear, Failure, and Hustle. I'm your humble host, Ebi Francis, as usual, your fork bearer. This week's episode is going to be amazing. It's going to be loaded, and I'm telling you, you will not regret a single minute of your time listening to the show. Last week, I had a friend, a dear friend and brother with me in the studio who spoke about the struggles of being a single father and running a chain of grocery stores as the operations VP, and how he has to manage both ends and make sure that, there's a balance. I hope you were encouraged. I hope you were inspired, even as not just as a single father, but as a single mom, being one myself. I know that there is lesson to be learned on both ends of the spectrum, but I hope it inspired you and you enjoyed the conversation altogether. This week, I have another special guest with me. She's a beautiful soul, a dear friend and sister, a social worker, a life coach, a consultant. She is no other person than Eileen Gabice, a wonderful person, a beautiful sister. I am so glad to welcome you, Eileen Gabice, to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me with you today. One thing that I don't take for granted is whenever I get this opportunity to come and share with the world, because I truly believe that it's a privilege and an honor to be here. And being here will be a blessing at anything else, one person. And to me, that's so important. If one person is blessed by this, then truly our work is done. And we're doing that which you've been called to do, which is fulfill purpose. Absolutely.
I agree with you 1000%. As one who sits behind the mic every week, to those who don't understand the mission, they may not get it. But it's a lot to actually decide and make the choice and say, I want to put myself out there in spite of what, the response might be, what the outcome might be, whether it's positive or negative. So totally, like you have just said, as long as it touches one life in a positive way. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And that's why I'm so glad that you actually agreed to come in and sit with me and, spread awareness in areas that you and I know we do need as human beings. As far as I'm concerned, positive information, that will help us to grow. You can never have too much of.
That's right.
So I just want to say thank you and welcome once again. And today we're chopping it up. Yay.
Let's go.
Yeah. So I want to tell you a short story about me and this this show. And as it has to do with the topic of conversation today, which is self-awareness as it concerns our growth as individuals and even as a group or a community. As a life coach, I know that you would have a ton of information to share with my audience today. So I just want to go ahead and let the audience know that this is not a journey I take lightly. However, being aware of why and what and who I'm doing this for is something that I deal with every day because I'm human. And I'm also, in a ways, I'm aware of myself and my intentions, but at the same time, I sometimes second guess myself as to whether I am going or doing the right thing. But because of the fact that the passion for it is there, and when I sit back and think of what I'm putting out, I know within myself that is something that will benefit somebody out there as it benefits me. Because I always tell my audience, as I'm talking to you, as I'm giving you this information, I'm also learning from it.
That's it.
Even if it's my own personal experience.
That's it.
So being self-aware is a thing that I believe a lot of us don't take the time to reflect on in many ways. I was listening to a TED talk about this topic, and two things stood out to me in that discussion, where one is when your self-reflection or self-awareness leads you to ask yourself why. And you tend to focus on the why of whatever the process is or whatever the situation is that you went through or the result or whatever, and focus more on maybe the what. And I applied that to my own experience doing this show and asked myself why. I kept saying why, but then I realized the why is always, why am I not having this many listeners? Or why don't I have this much support group? Or why don't I have this or that or that? And in the same vein, I realized the whys don't really help me, because before I decided to start doing this thing, I felt like I had already come to the notion that the what is more important than the why.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
So being a life coach, why do you think, when one is reflecting or recognizing the self-awareness of what you were doing or where you're going or where you're hoping to go and wishing that the world goes takes that same path with you. Why do we tend to self-reflect in a negative way?
So I guess the first thing I would say to you is the fact that you are introspecting and asking yourself these key questions in itself indicates that there's growth. Okay? So we're talking about self-awareness and how it impacts growth. In order for you to grow, there has to be a piece of you that has to dig deep within to understand not necessarily the whys, but the whats. What is the motivation behind this podcast? Once you identify that, oftentimes that supersedes the why. Because most times when you go in search of the why, you will not find the answers always. And not finding the answers will cause you to stifle, to stagnate, and not grow. But if you can understand that sometimes the why is not necessarily as important as the what, then that indicates growth. You can't grow if you don't self-internalize. You can't grow if you don't sit down and take stock of where you are in your life, what is going on in your life, what propels you, what causes you to be you. And I tell people all the time, especially when we talk with people who are dealing with, they've gone through trauma, they're going through some type of transformation. It's not, the why is not necessarily as important as the what. What is triggering all these emotions you're feeling right now? Something might have happened down the road. You might have had an interaction. You might have had an experience. You cannot prevent anything that's in the past. You cannot go back to the past to undo the past. So the why is good to know, but it's not as important as the what, the purpose, the drive, the motivation, the catapult. It's not as important as what is causing or what is driving you to want to do this. So to me, that's very important, and that shows growth. In terms of people, it takes self-actualization, awareness for you to get to the point where people are not necessarily as important in the equation of things. So if you think about like a chemistry project or you're doing chemistry, they'll tell you there's an agent called a catalyst. A catalyst is something that helps speed up the process. It is not in any way, shape, or form a part of the process. It comes in to speed things up so you can get your end results, your outcome. So you have to keep that in mind. So that's how I oftentimes see people. When you start pursuing something, you will always have those people whose role and responsibility it is to make you understand the what of what you're doing, the why of what you do. When I was a choir director at my church and I had a regional choir, had a huge choir, I used to tell my choir members all the time, why do you do what you do? Why do you do it? Why are you in the choir? Why do you come here every day, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, you're singing, you're rehearsing? Why do you do it? If you don't know the why of what you're doing, what is making you do what you do, then you're wasting your time. There has to be a drive and a motivation and an actualization and an awareness of who we are, why we do what we do, and what is causing us to do what we do.
You know, it's interesting. You said something about the reason why I most likely may be going back to the whys that in this case is not that helpful to the cause. Instead of focusing on the what, in which is the content and the authenticity of what this whole project is about. Mm-hmm. You know, when I first launched the show, I think it was in my first or second episode, I spoke about my experience in college. Mm-hmm. Of course, Well, you sound more American to me than I do. And when I was in school years ago, I think I was the only Nigerian in my class here. And in one of the class screenings of a project that we had done, my professor looked out at me and said to me that he doesn't think I would be able to get a job because of my accent.
Interesting.
And this was in front of everybody in class. And I was like, I didn't see that coming from anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I was so embarrassed. I felt like, let this ground open so I can enter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I knew that I would not let that statement demoralize me. I had to speak up for myself.
Absolutely.
So I immediately, responded by saying, Sarah, I know I have an accent, but I'm not in this class or doing this just because I am going to go get a job tomorrow. I also have other plans, like starting my own production company. How about that? Mm-hmm. And if you can hear a pin drop in class, because it's like you had the
audacity to speak up.
To speak up,
Yeah.
But I had to say something because as the only Nigerian in class and the second Black person in the class.
Wow.
I was like, why would you even say that?
So you touched on so many areas and sharing that story in itself. But again, it took you realizing who you are. It took you realizing the purpose. Why are you in this class? What are you doing this class for? You're not necessarily doing this class for yourself. This has been driven by a purpose. This has been driven by a mission. This has been driven by the fact that you know what you were supposed to do. You know what your purpose and mission is. You know how to impact the world with the gift that you have within you. So hence him saying that is a catalyst that has birthed this. It's a part of the equation, because when you're in that situation where people constantly tell you no, or people constantly put you down, two things can happen to you. If you're someone who's not aware of who you are and you don't know what you're supposed to do, that will break you. But for someone who left their country thousands of miles away, came here, got reacclimated to this environment, is now taking this course, and you know why you took the course. You know for what purpose this course will do in your life and in the trajectory of your life and your life destiny. So this man had no right to say that, because you're very nice. Because I probably would have said to him, and you don't have an accent? Where you from? Texas? That's how you sound to foreigners. I seriously, like on a side note, I often have to tell, especially because we're in Texas, I often have to tell Texans, y'all have an accent. Y'all sound real.
Yeah, actually, he told me, he said, if at all I will have a chance in getting employment, it would be somewhere in California. That is, if at all. Mm-hmm. But that in Texas here, that I don't stand a chance to get a job.
And in the scheme of things, he's totally irrelevant. That's what I would say.
No,
totally
you know the craziest thing though? His class introduced me to a lot of media production that I never knew about, including podcasting.
Right.
Okay. One of the projects we were assigned to do in the class turned out to be podcasting. And that's how I found out about podcasting. And after going through that project, like you write your own script, you voice it yourself and all of that. Before hearing from him, I thought, this is amazing. I did not know that podcasting was a thing out there, And I was like, this is a great way to actually bless people.
Absolutely.
With information and any which way you can, encourage or touch the lives of people in any way or shape or form that you think in your own capacity you can do. So I felt good about it.
Yes.
But of course, after that project, it had to be, screened again. Like in this very project, it wasn't screened in class. Thank God. He did the listening on his own because it was audio. Mm-hmm. And as God will have it, he liked my delivery.
Of course, because at the end of the day, it's the content. It's the content. It's not necessarily about the accent. It's more so the content. When your content is life-giving, because, everything we do, what we're saying right now, the sound we make has vibrations. Those sounds that you make, it carries a life form. I'm someone who's very much aware of, as human beings, that we are spirit beings that, embody this shell that we live in called a body. So having an understanding of that makes you realize that everything has a life form. Some objects are innate, some objects are alive, but they have a life form and they carry a wave and a frequency. So when you create a podcast and you put content like this, it goes all over the world and it's given life to different people at different points at different times. It's not about the accent. It's not about where you're from.
Not at all. I guess I had to bring that story up because when I started, I had a lot of, and I still do, by the way. I'm a work in progress, like I always tell my listeners, a lot of self-doubt. Mm-hmm. One, I'm constantly questioning myself as to if the way I structure my topics delivers or is lined up in a way that the listener gets something authentic or gets my authenticity and also gets the message I'm trying to put out. And then on the other hand, I'll say to myself, well, my accent, but then I don't worry. I realize I don't even bother about the accent anymore because I'm like, you know what? I know that there is a person out there who doesn't care about how I sound, but is willing to take the information that I'm putting out for him or her because it's helpful for them. Heck, who knows? My voice can be the only one that actually, goes down deep.
That's right.
Into them that they listen to.
And that's the essence of why you do what you do. And that is what propels you to get up every day. And I know this because I've been where you've been. I'm still walking in your shoes. Like you said, we're all a work in progress. There's some days I don't feel like doing content. There's some days I don't feel like talking to people. There's some days, but you know what? I'm like, Gabice, it's not about you.
Right.
It's really not about you. So get out of your feelings and do what you have to do. Before coming here today, I've been, some medications I'm taking is making me feel some kind of way. I know my boyfriend was laughing at me. I'm like, but I said, this is important. I have to go and do this because I know it's going to bless somebody. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the purpose, what you're doing. And what you're doing derives from your self-awareness, realizing that, hey, guess what? It's not about Ebi today. It's about that one person that's in China maybe listening. It's about that one person that might be in South Africa listening. It's about that one person that might be in Kazakhstan listening. It might be about that one person that may be in Ghana listening. Somebody out there is being blessed by this.
So that's the positive self-awareness part of it.
It's a positive self-awareness.
Because there's the positive part and the negative part.
Now, when you say negative, because self-awareness is coming to terms, realizing who you are. And part of self-awareness is accepting, like I said, whatever had occurred prior to this point. Because in order for you to have self-awareness, you have to acknowledge what you have been through, what's brought you this far. You have to acknowledge the threads. Like I tell people, we're woven from so many different beautiful threads. Everything that happens to us for a reason and a purpose. And when you come to that point where you say, you know what, I want to take stock. I need to look at my life. Who am I? Why am I here? Why have I gone through these things that I've gone through? What defines me? What is propelling me? What is the force behind Ebi? What makes Ebi get up every day and say, I got this? Even in the face of doubt, you just push through and say, I got this. even when you're not sure about the content, because I want to tell you, every podcast is different and unique. Y'all might have the same.
Absolutely.
Y'all might have the same schematic. Just like every coach, everybody's a transformative coach. Everybody's a life coach. Everybody's a this, but everybody's way of delivery and impact is different. It's unique and it's needed. I like to say that there is space at the top for everybody to shine and everybody to give, because you don't have everything.
No,
I don't have everything. She doesn't have everything. He doesn't have everything. So your piece, my piece, his piece, her piece, guess what? We're building a big, beautiful picture. We're building a big, beautiful rainbow. And that's what makes this whole thing work.
But is it possible, though, that your self-awareness can work against you if you choose to only recognize the part of you that isn't functioning the way you want it to function?
Being self-aware is a totality. You can't say I'm self-aware.
So that's why you have the whys and the what. Because the what is what propels you.
The what is what propels you. The why is so if someone had a traumatic experience in their life, okay? Or if someone has had an experience in their life, something in the past, why it happened, can you go back and find out why it happened in every case?
Not necessarily.
Exactly. So this is who I am. I went through ABC. I am here. Now I'm here. I realize that I could be so much more. I realize that I could be more impactful. I realize that maybe I don't need to be as vocal as I used to be. Maybe at this point, I realize that I don't always have to share everything at a particular moment in time. Mm-hmm. That's all part of self-awareness. I realized that my values have changed. You know, the things I thought were that important 3, 4, 5 years ago, they're really not that important right now. Because guess what? I realize the makings of who I am. That we have to take stock. If we are going to grow as individuals, as a group, a community, an organization, whatever you want to call yourself, there has to be moments when we take stock.
You know, there's something about me that, like you said, we have to take stock that I've always, thought about, and I when I take that stock, I tend to ask myself, okay, am I too brash in the way I respond? For example, a friend comes to me and is sharing information with me. And in my mind's eye, depending on what the scenario of that conversation is,
processing,
as you're talking, I'm processing what you're saying. And you're not giving me these informations to just hear and be quiet. You're expecting me to respond, right? And the me that I am, I like to be straight. I like to, tell it like I see it, like I believe it is. But I realize that anytime that happens and I come up with my understanding of, what you have just explained.
Spill the beans. Come on, spit it like it is. They don't take it well. Someone said to me, someone has even said I'm a bully with the way I respond to things. Okay.
Because I say it like it is. Because I'm not saying...
Because you're direct.
I'm direct. I'm not saying it the way they want me to say it. Or I'm not processing what they told me the way they want me to process it.
So my question to you in that situation, or to anyone else listening, when someone says that to you, what do you do?
I say this all the time. I'm like, listen, whatever response I give you is based on the information you shared with me.
But after that
and if you don't want me to be honest with you, especially if I consider you a friend.
I get that. But after that conversation, what do you do with what has been given to you?
In terms of
the response, what they said about you.
This is what happens. The next time I just want to watch you. I just want to listen to you. Like because I know that if I say something, it's still going to be the same way I come across. Yes, it's going to be misinterpreted, or I'm still going to come out brash or rash in the way I respond to it, because I don't sugarcoat nothing. I just tell it like I believe it is.
So in that case, I kind of hear two things happening. One is you're saying, this is me, this is who I am. Now, that response that you received from that person, have you received that response from anyone else?
I receive it from a couple of people, yes.
So in that case, Eileen, being me who I am, what I do is I go back and I say, okay, Gabice, if they're all saying these things, there has to be an element of truth in it, and I have to own it.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's an element of truth in it, what can I do for people to receive what I'm saying more?
Or how do I approach the response, or the way I reply?
So exactly.
Or process.
Again, that's the self-awareness. You know, people used to say that to me. You're just like too direct and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be too direct, or
I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. But I feel like you want me to be honestly,
but the delivery. It's all about the delivery. And what I say to myself is, okay, think about this, Gabice, okay? If you were in their shoes and they said what I said to them, how would I feel? And then another thing you have to realize as well in such situation is, who are you dealing with? You have to know the people that you deal with. I tell people this all the time. Knowing and understanding the individual you're dealing with takes care of 80% of the issues that you'll probably have with this person. If I know you are this particular way, I know I can only give you so much. Like the Bible says, Paul said, baby, you have to give them milk. But when you're an adult, you give them meat, you give them bone to chew. So when you're dealing with individuals, you have to understand individuals. For someone who is aware of who they are, being honest and being direct is not an issue. I'm going to take it. Oh, okay, she said that. Okay, I'll think about it.
Yeah, because I take it.
But you see, that self-awareness that AB has. AB, let me tell you something, and I had to learn this myself. Everybody's not where you are. Everybody, I don't care. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine, Umar, on Tuesday. I said, Umar, I had to learn from being in the church. They would say things and people would get all excited and express the hallelujahs and everything, and then would come out and we'll have a conversation and they'll say something else. And I'm like, dear God, did you not just let hallelujah? But you out here sounding like you're not sure whether you're coming or you're going. And I had to say to myself, Gabice, they're not where you are. Just because someone has been in a place for 20, 30, 40 years doesn't necessarily mean that, they've grown, they have that self-awareness and self-actualization. They haven't. And so you have to know that. Some people are afraid to truly look at who they are.
I agree.
And until you can do that, you won't grow. You think you're growing. Physically, you might be growing, but mentally, in your mind's eye and in your true self, you're not growing. And
you're compartmentalizing.
Not just
because I that part of you, in my opinion, is like you are not willing to address. So
there's a self-awareness there's a public self-awareness. How am I perceived in the public? How do people see me? What do they think about me? Does my behavior and what I do conform to public expectation? Then there's that internal person who sits back and says, okay, this is who I am inside. I know me. That's why I tell people all the time, be honest with yourself. Stand in front of the mirror and have a conversation with yourself. I'm not saying you're crazy. You're not crazy. There's certain things we do and it affirms certain beliefs and values for us. Stand in front of the mirror. Take a good look at yourself. And for me personally, when one person can say something, but if 2 or 3 people start telling me the same thing, then I'm like, okay, Gabice, sit down and think about this. They might be telling the truth.
Tell you what, I do that a lot.
It's good.
Like, for example, you call me and we talk and talk and talk. And there's something else. I am now self-aware enough to know I do, which is offering advice, unsolicited advice, I call it, because
that's going to get you in trouble.
Because again, it's the way I process information when I get it. If you present it to me a certain way, I will assume that you want to hear my opinion about it or what I think about it, or essentially you're indirectly asking me, what do you think about it, or how should I approach this? Okay, that is me, myself, and how I process the information, and then as I'm responding to you or interacting with you based on what you just shared with me, I find myself giving advice as to, well, if it were me, or if it's like this, you know what I mean? And then after I do that, the conversation will go on and on and on. And when we're done, I get off the phone and then I'll start asking myself, like, why did he or did she ask you to say that? Like, did you, I just keep going on and on with myself like that. And then guess what? I call the person back. And I'll be like, was I saying too much? Like, I know you didn't ask me to say, advise me. And I just kept on going. I hope I didn't say go too much or take it too far, whatever. I'll be like, no, so.
so the thing as well is when you know who you are and you know how you know this about yourself now. My best advice to you is when they call and they say these things, your question to them should be, okay, so do you want me to share my thoughts on this? Or because sometimes people just want someone to listen to them.
I agree.
Sometimes they don't want your advice. They just want to vent. Like I do in my office, and my coworker, she's like, I just want to vent. I'm like, okay, vent. I'm listening. And she's like, you okay? I'm like, okay, so can I fix the problem? She's like, yes. Okay, great. Let me go take care of it. So sometimes it's like that. But again, as you grow, and this self-actualization, self-awareness, it's not a one-time thing.
No, it's not. It's
not. Because you're here now. In the next 6 months, you might be somewhere else. And oftentimes, things that cause us to sit back and start to reflect, something happens. A life event happens, an incident happens, you're somewhere, you see something, and it makes you start to think. And you should never be afraid to critique yourself.
Oh,
you should never be afraid.
I'm number one when it comes to that.
Yeah, but when you do that, make sure it's constructive. Some people critique themselves to bring themselves down.
That's it. That's it.
And that's not what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, I agree. But that's where the why can lead you to going down that path.
And that's why I said, when we started, I said, sometimes the why is not as relevant as the what.
Yes, the what.
The what in the moment, because
it's definitely what gives you
this moment,
the perspective to grow.
Where you are, what is making you do what you're doing? If you want to bring a why in, bring a why in. Okay, I'm right here right now. Why am I doing this? What's causing me to do this? But to say you want to critique yourself, because constructive criticism doesn't break you down. Constructive says, I can do this, okay, I can do it like this, I can do it like this, it can be better. But that type
constructive should lead you to reconstruct.
Exactly. But the type of why did this happen to me? Why am I like this? Oh my God, I can't believe I did. Oh, no, that's not where we want to go. Right. And that's why I tell people in the healing process too, sometimes the why is not, you can't go back. We will never always get the answers to the whys of what has happened prior to this point. Sometimes we can, but depending on how far back the incident or whatever it is happened, you can't get the answer. So this is where I am. I'm at point D. I am going towards Z. So at this point, I'm not looking back. I'm looking forward. So this is who I am. This is what's made me who I am right now. And I want to go to point Z. Why do I want to go to point Z? What is causing me to want to go to point Z? And then I start to approach in that direction. And you start with yourself. Growth starts within you. You can't expect people around you to grow if you are the same.
And also, what I think, and I will apply this to myself as well. when you are honestly honest about your self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realize that sometimes we can be self-aware, but we only choose the part we want to choose. We're not honest.
That's the public. This is what
No, I mean honest to yourself.
You have a mask. It's called masking.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on.
There's an awful lot of that going on. Because you know why? I don't want to give. Let me just give a general statement. Most people are dealing with a lot of, let me just put like this, baggages. A lot of people carry bags that they don't
Don't
need
we
to
all
carry.
carry baggage?
But some of it you don't need to carry.
Exactly.
Some of it you need to drop. Some of it is not yours.
But you have to be honest with yourself to know that you don't have to carry all of it.
That's why when you realize this moment in time, I'm carrying this bag, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I don't need to. I need to change this. I can't live like this. I can't grow like this. I'm not at peace with myself. I'm not happy with myself. I'm not content with my life. When you hit that point, that's when self-awareness starts. And I tell people, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen. You're not going to suddenly change and be this person you think you should be. Because we all have a notion of who we think we are. And then there's also the real self that plays out. Again, based on your foundation and what has happened to you prior to this point of your awakening.
So what is the best approach to true and honest self-awareness for somebody to be able to grow in the forward sense?
In the forward sense. So the first thing you need to do is you need to realize, like I said, that you won't always have the answers to maybe things that have happened to you in the past or things that have shaped you to be who you are. Okay. That's the first thing. And then I tell people all the time, give yourself grace. A lot of us beat ourselves up like so bad. Like, why did you do this? And maybe if you had done that, and maybe if you cannot live in the maybes. So give yourself grace. Give yourself grace to say, this is where I am. This is what I have in my hand. Like God said to Moses, what do you have in your hand? You have a rod. So Moses, it was just a rod.
You know what? Before you start giving us those nuggets for us to arm ourselves with, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. So like I was saying, what do you have in your hand? What can you build with that you currently have? Start with the things that work for you. Start with the positive. You talked about not going down that pathway where you critique yourself, that you go down that beaten path. Start with what is positive, what is working in your life. Then when you start with that, then you go to what can I improve on? What can I do better? What will make this diamond shine? I tell people all the time, diamonds, and as we all know, comes from coal. It has to go through a long
refining
process.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's finished, I tell people all the time, you also have to realize that different diamonds have different cuts, different
and
colors, shapes, and they reflect light differently. That's what makes each diamond different. That's why you are different. That's why I am different. That's why we all bring the essence and beauty of a life to this world. So you start there. Then once you've done that, then you can say, okay, this is what's working. This is what I can improve on. What are the things that I want to really, really like change? What are the things?
You literally just took that word out of my mouth.
Yeah,
change.
What do I really want to change?
This definitely now interlocks with change.
Yes, it
because
does.
For this to happen, you might have to make some changes along the way.
Let me tell you.
Whether it's pulling out of something and pulling in something fresh.
If you are not ready for growth, for you to grow, there has to be a give. There has to be a change. There has to be a shift, a dimensional shift in your mind. And what we're talking about, this is all in the mind. You don't necessarily have to change your physical being. If you want to, you feel you need to, that's on you. That's cool.
You know, my guest, the last guest I had on the show, as I said earlier, is a single father and having to raise his 8 years old daughter, and also working as a boss man at his current position. But when it came to raising his daughter and how he interacts with her, he said to me, I had to let her know that daddy has some down and bad times too. In other words, he said, these were his words, if I'm not mistaken, that daddy is a little bit of an emotional guy. And so she sees that I'm not always like macho, that there are times when it doesn't feel that good and I'm not afraid or ashamed. I'm aware enough of what that can do in her life, the impact it can make in her life, to show her that, yes, daddy has some bad times, so that she's not shocked if down the road she's grown and she sees him maybe, in that space, because she has been exposed to that situation. Exactly. And knowing you and knowing me from where we come from, the other part of you that is African, our parents are not, they never show us that soft side of them. Yes. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Cultural context.
In the cultural, is it cultural context, or is like family? Well, I think culture has to do with it.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, because for every culture, and I always find that there are more common threads amongst all the non-Anglo culture. I always find that they're very common threads, because when you speak to people who are from Asia, you speak to people who are from South America, you speak to people who are from, other parts of the world, they'll tell you, my parents went, very like, you didn't, show the mushy side of it. They were like, go to school, get your education. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. So yeah, there's definitely the cultural piece, and that plays into it, because for him as a single father raising a daughter, it is important, the type of dynamics and what he shows her, because that will impact how she will perceive and see men and interact with men.
But she's a girl. But that could also apply to a boy child.
Oh, no, it's applicable all around.
Yes. I watched a show, I think that was Tamron Hall's show yesterday. And this guy who wrote a book, and he says he's trying to speak to young men all over the world about letting to be aware of themselves enough to let their emotions show, and not to be like, oh, because, you were raised to feel like you're always supposed to be strong and never cry, or never show, or whatever, but that he was lucky enough to have a dad who allowed him to be so. But the dad was never allowed to be that aware of himself, whereby he's able to expose, or at least allow himself to be in that kind of vulnerable emotional state. But he was lucky to have that from his dad. He said his dad's dad never did that. Said to him, I love you, ever. Never used that word.
That's a common, unfortunately, common thing that I've heard as well from other cultures. And I'll speak more so from our side of the world, our African culture. Right. It's not something which they practice.
No, they don't.
But I'm glad to say I see more so the younger generation
today.
They are seeing the benefits of being vulnerable and being open, and allowing their children as well to grow and develop and come to the point where they have their own self-awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
I have my niece who's 4, and it will tell you in a heartbeat, I don't want that. I'm like, you don't have a voice. And my sister's like, oh, she does have a voice. I said, she can't be telling me she doesn't want that. She's like, so I said, why don't you want it? You can't just tell me you don't want it. Why? Give me a reason. Let me understand why you don't want, X, Y, Z, And so I applaud parents, especially in our community, who have come to that realization and trying to make that change. So yes.
Because that definitely really has everything to do with you being aware of who you are.
Absolutely. Again, your ability to be vulnerable takes you being aware of who you are and realizing that being vulnerable is not a weakness.
Exactly.
It's not a weakness. Being vulnerable means I'm in touch with who I am. I have, I'm in touch with my feelings. I'm in touch with my emotions. I know my value. If this has happened, that has happened, has made me feel this way, whereby maybe I'm emotional, that's a strength in itself. Because to be able to acknowledge your emotions and your feelings is a strength in itself. And there's nothing wrong with that.
At all. If nothing, it helps you to grow.
It does. It helps you to grow.
Because otherwise there's the side of you that you have not explored because you're not self-aware enough to know that part of you.
You don't know your true self.
Yes.
You don't. You hide. You mask. You mask everything. You mask who you are. You go outside. You have your public awareness, what you want people to see and think about you. Then you have your internal awareness where you go in and then you're having all these moments where maybe you're breaking down, you're having an emotional breakdown, maybe you're depressed, you're having anxiety attacks, but you don't want to talk about it because there's a piece of you that says, if I show myself, my true self, if I am vulnerable, therefore I'm weak, because that's what maybe society or your community or your whatever has taught you. But that's not true. Your true self is saying, hey, this is who I am. I have moments where I struggle with these things because this is what it does to me. But I want to get over this. It's okay if I have this. I'm okay with it. But guess what? I'm bigger and better than this because XYZ makes me this person. XYZ makes me the strong woman. My surviving this disastrous marriage makes me a better person because now I know what I should look for in my next situation. I know how to interact with other women, maybe my daughters. I've shown them ways to be better.
So do you think, from your background as a life coach, do you think that this idea of secrecy of self, even in some cases when you know who you are aware of XYZ of yourself. You can't. And you choose to hide it. You can't hide from yourself. Does that help anybody? No, you can't hide from yourself. If you hide from yourself, you have some deeply seated issues. You need to go into serious counseling. If you hide from yourself, you when I say counseling, you need a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Now, we have a lot of those kind of people around here, especially in our community. And I get that. And that's why when you get a snippet or you get your opportunity to see into you're given little windows to see into people's real lives, you kind of shake your head and you're like, you know what? I'm okay. Hey. I'm really okay. But you can say that again. Yeah, you can't hide from yourself. You cannot get to the point where you have self-awareness, where you develop, where you grow if you hide from yourself. You have to be able to face the bitter self of who you are. Right. Whatever it is, that's why I tell you, whatever made you and brought you to this point, if you are still living, breathing, and you have the opportunity for life, then you need to say, okay, this happened. This happened to me. I was this way. Here. I was this way. I did this. I did that. And that happened. Okay. But what's working right now? The fact that I even acknowledge these things, that's good. That means I'm growing. That means my true self is coming out. My true self is coming out. And I'm okay with that. And I'm going to get the help that I need. And I tell people all the time, you don't need 20, 30 people. You need one or two good people in your corner. True that. Okay? Secrecy to yourself is stagnation. You're dying. You're not living. It's it's like when we have a winter storm, the snow comes down. Oh, for the first day or two, the plants look like they're okay. They're going to make it. They're going to make it. And you go out there on the third day and everything is like whelped. The life has been sucked out of them. Exactly. That's the same thing when you hide from yourself. But you know what, though? You can't hide from yourself
Because the more you try to do that, the more you will mentally and internally break down.
And then in such cases, you go into relationships and you drag that self that you're hiding under the covers into the relationship, and you suck that person into that, it's
a disaster.
That situation, which sometimes ends up becoming a toxic environment.
Yeah, it's not.
Because you're not dealing with you inside.
You can't have anything healthy if you have not dealt with the thing that's making you dysfunctional. You can't. Because guess what? You don't know what normal, healthy functioning is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like we're talking about a relationship. If all you've ever known is a man who cusses you out, calls you to be, and, treats you any which way. When you get a guy who cares about you and truly says, you know what, babe, you're so much better than this. Why don't you do this? Oh, what you talking about? Ain't nothing wrong with me. I've been like this my whole life. Da, da, da. Everybody love me. But guess what? Your behavior reaction, that's not. Someone loves and cares about you and says, hey, I think you can do better. You got this. Let's do this.
And something else I would like to point out before we wrap up this show, concerning the self-awareness thing, with people who tend to mask, themselves, even with the awareness and all, in the eyes of the public, they mask themselves to appear a certain way. Mm-hmm. And when you, as a close associate or friend or, whatever, mm-hmm. see it in them and say, try to encourage them to look inwards and not in an aggressive way, but in a way that you care for this person and you're seeing that there is a mask, over this person's face and whole persona, mm-hmm. and you wanting to help or you're wanting to encourage them to look inwards and try to see how they can help themselves, mm-hmm. and you become the enemy. Mm-hmm. When you find yourself in that kind of scenario as a person, what do you do? Because sometimes some people can continue like that.
So let me ask you this. You can take a horse to the water. Can you force that horse to drink?
Well, no, you cannot. But you have to try to see if they're able to, right? If they want to drink the water or not. Or do you just stay and watch them, continue to dehydrate in the sense of water and drinking?
If you have someone who's having that, exhibiting those behaviors, the best way that you can show them is, it sounds very simple, but it really is. You just have to be there and you have to demonstrate that which you want them to be.
Yourself.
Okay? Mm-hmm. That's how it starts.
But what if that's not who they want to be? What if that's not the direction of life they want to go?
But you see, that's the thing. You now have self-awareness of who you are.
Right.
And you're moving in that direction. Okay? This person is not there. You cannot make them be there. They have to want and desire change.
Right.
They have to want and desire growth. They have to want and desire to be at the next level. To keep going up, and up. If they don't desire that, nothing you say or do is going to change. There has to be a desire from the individual person. Okay? There has to be a desire. If not, it's not going to work. That's why when you go to therapy, if you're not ready to put in the work, they'll tell you, we can't do anything. Because, you have to have that set the expectation and the tone. You're in therapy. There's going to be homeworks. There's going to be assignments. There's going to be accountability. And you have to show. So for you to take time out, go take your time, sit down, time until you get back. And there's no, monetary factor to your time or value. Mm-hmm. That means you really want change. So if someone does not come to that actualization, realization, they can't change. They won't grow. They'll stay where they are. That's why you see some men or women 30, 40, 50, 60, they still doing the same thing day in day. You're like, come on, bruh, sis. What's up with you? Come on. You got to smell the coffee.
Right.
But they're not there. Again, remember when I was telling you about some people who are in the same place here in the same thing 10, 20 years, but it hasn't sunk in there. Hasn't sunk in there for multiple reasons and whys. And that's a whole nother gamut, Pandora's box you open, because then you have to go back and look at the makings of this person, why they are who they are. And can they accept who they are in this moment in time, and do they desire the change to be better?
And you know, this whole conversation we've had really is not just for the individual and his or her person. This can also play out in other activities of life, including work, business, and your interaction, you know, out there. So
one thing you have to understand about human beings as a social workers, one of the things we understand, we are made up of systems. It's called systems theory. We're made up of systems. Your home is a system. Your job is a system. Your church is a system. Your friends is a system. Your sorority is a system.
Your business.
Your business is a system. So all these systems are all around you, and you are the person in the middle. Okay? So you think of one circle, you in the middle, the different systems around you. That's the second circle. And then there's a bigger circle, which is our community, our world. We look at it as micro, meso, macro. Everything is interconnected. Everything impacts you, and you impact everything. So you're not an isolated situation.
Right.
So once you start realizing, again, who you are, where you are, what you are made of, what is working for you, what can you improve on, what do you need to change, or what do you need to let go of? Because sometimes we need to let go of certain things. It could be hard, but you know, you say, if I'm really going to do this, it's like, think about swimming. If you're swimming against the current, you have an uphill battle. But if you're swimming with the current, it's easier because the current will carry you.
Right.
So it's the same thing. If you really want that, and self-actualization and awareness is hard.
Self-awareness is you have to put in the work.
You not only have to put in the work, but you have to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly and say, okay.
But that's what makes you as a person.
People don't. What if someone has never been told that? How do you expect them to know that? If they've never been told, there's some people that might be listening to us right now and have never heard it discussed like this.
True.
I can't fault anybody. I can't. We tell people, you know, when we're coaching, therapy, whatever, I tell people all the time, if you take this cup from me, you've left a void. That void needs to be filled. You need to fill it with something.
Right.
And it needs to be something that's going to help me grow and evolve to the next level. So when you're dealing with people, if what you're going to tell them is like, you know, it's like, I always reference the Bible because I'm a Christian, but you know, it's like what, you know, if something is not going to edify someone, I'm not going to tell you.
Right.
I will not tell you.
Right. And that's what this show is about.
Exactly.
Edify, inspire people.
We want to edify. We want to grow you.
Help
want
you
to
to
inspire
grow.
you. We want to motivate you. We want to, you know, empower you.
Right.
That's what this is all about. And that's the whole idea of self-awareness and growth.
Right.
You want to get to the point where after you've done your own, you know, introspective and you've looked at everything, retrospective, you say to yourself, you know what? I want to do this because I'm this way. I want to do this because I know I could do this. I want to do this because I'm inspired. I don't want to do this because I'm all that and some more and a bag of chip and everything else in between.
Yes, girl. Yes. Oh my God. That was awesome, ain't it?
Yeah.
That was awesome. Wow. Eileen Gabice has been with me in the studio, and boy, has it been a wonderful conversation. I don't need to ask you. I don't need to tell you. I'm sure that you're going to walk away with something on this episode. My goodness, my dear sister and friend.
Yeah.
What can I say? Thank you.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
That's this one, eh? I had go they play and back.
Play.
Hey, my goodness, this is amazing.
No,
please, you have to come back. We have to do some more of this.
Absolutely, anytime.
Honestly,
anytime.
Because this is just so amazing, and it's going to be quite edifying and inspiring, and would inspire growth somewhere. Yes. I know this. Yes. I know this. This is for somebody out there. And I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you coming. You could have been chilling at home and doing your thing. And you see, when you came in, you were feeling somehow, but it looks like now I can see the light, and you were like, you see how it is?
Yes.
Especially when you know you're giving out good.
Yes. And I'm
it enhances you.
I love it. I love leaving people. I always say to people, when I leave, I want you to feel refreshed.
Absolutely.
I want you to feel like, you know what? That woman's a little crazy, but I like her.
And it refreshes you too when they are refreshed.
Yes,
exactly.
I feel really good.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you pour out to people, when you pour out the good vibes and the good energy, it comes right back.
Absolutely.
So I don't lose. I'm not, any lesser. If anything, I feel even more propelled. I feel like I've just been elevated to another level.
That's what pushes me every day, girl. That's every episode when I come through with it. I'm like, God, it may not be perfect, but
it's perfect.
I have my listeners out there at heart.
Yes.
And I do this because I know that just as it's going to benefit someone, I am also going to benefit from it. So I mean, it's just the best thing ever,
Yes,
so thank you. Thank you. Our life coach, Eileen Gabice. She's a life coach once again, a social worker and a consultant and a beautiful soul. Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. God bless y'all.
And definitely come back.
I sure will.
All right, beautiful people. I have nothing more to say, but just enjoy this episode and please share and comment and email your suggestions or concerns, whatever, because I know you would be thinking after listening to this episode. All right. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Y'all have a wonderful week. Failure and Hustle podcast is created and produced by Brick Barrier Productions International. Written, recorded, and hosted by Ebi Francis. Have a true life story you'd like to share in your own voice or anonymously on the show, then feel free to email us at fff.h.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks for lending me your ears and voices by listening, sharing your stories, comments, and reviews this week. Find, listen, and download episodes of this podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. This episode was edited and mixed by Freddyville Media Productions. Join me on the next episode. But until then, be you, stay you, work, fear, failure, and hustle. You got this.